Welcome everyone, join us today as we delve into the life and legacy of Phil Seymour, the American singer, drummer, and songwriter best known for his work as a solo artist with song, Precious to Me, and as a member of the Dwight Twilley Band. So let's dive in. Philip Warren Seymour, born May 15, 1952, in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, United States of America. He was zodiac sign Taurus. Born to William Seymour and Lee McCarley, with his sister Lane, Phil grew up surrounded by music. From an early age, he mastered drums, bass, and guitar, making him a natural one-man rhythm section. Music was his passion, and by 15, it was clear he was destined for a career in it. That journey began sooner than expected when he crossed paths with Dwight Twilley by chance in 1967. This chance meeting took place at the Bowman Twin Cinema, in Tulsa, where they were both watching A Hard Day's Night, the Beatles' 1965 film. Though the movie was a couple of years old, Phil decided to see it, and so did Dwight, a fellow musician who lived just a few blocks away and attended the same high school, Charles Edison. Discovering their shared passion for music, the two quickly connected, and by the end of the night, they had already decided to write and record together. After deciding to collaborate, Phil and Dwight formed a band called Oyster. They dedicated much of their free time to developing their musical skills, playing piano, drums, bass, and guitar, while also perfecting their harmonies. Through patience and relentless practice, their voices blended seamlessly, creating a distinct sound. Once they had mastered harmonizing, they turned their focus to songwriting, eager to craft original material. After a few years, Phil and Dwight expanded their duo into a trio with the addition of guitarist Bill Pitcock IV. Originally a drummer, Bill had learned the instrument from his father, who led his own band. However, he soon gravitated toward the guitar, a switch that proved to be the right fit. Before long, he was performing alongside his father's band, honing his skills. A naturally gifted musician, Bill was ready to branch out and take on new opportunities. Bill began sitting in with Phil and Dwight during their practice sessions, helping them refine their sound. As they continued writing songs and developing their style, he naturally became part of their band Oyster. Oyster began rehearsing in a room above Pitcock Electrical, Bill's grandfather's business. By day, his grandfather installed recording equipment and operated his own studio, The Shop, where Oyster spent countless hours recording new songs. Later, they recorded a session at BJ Recordings in Arkansas. However, live performances were rare. When they did play, they drew strong local interest, but their main focus remained on recording demos in hopes of landing a record deal. The Shop served Oyster well for early demos, but by the late 60s, they had outgrown the small studio. Lacking the funds to record in major music hubs like LA, New York, or Nashville, they instead found themselves in Tupelo, Mississippi, where they met Ray Harris. Harris had received a tape from Judd Phillips, brother of Sun Records founder Sam Phillips, who was impressed by Oyster and hoped his old friend could help them. Though they never recorded with Harris, he introduced them to rockabilly and urged them to strengthen their vocals, shaping their sound for the future. Harris's advice proved invaluable, prompting Oyster to refine their sound upon returning to Tulsa. They embraced a rootsier style, adding depth and character to their music. Back home, they continued honing their craft, occasionally joined by bassist Johnny Johnston and pianist Jim Barth, who enriched their live performances. Despite growing local popularity, the band knew they had to move on. By 1974, Oyster decided it was time to chase their big break. Realizing Tulsa wasn't the place for it, they set their sights on Los Angeles, one of America's key music hubs. Just 2 weeks after arriving in Los Angeles, Oyster landed a deal with Shelter Records, co-owned by Leon Russell and Denny Cordell. With their new contract came a new name, the Dwight Twilley Band. Shelter Records wasted no time, insisting the band adapt to working in a professional 16-track studio. In November 1974, they were sent to Church Studio in Tulsa. It was a major step up from their previous setups, but Phil didn't hesitate. Turning to Dwight, he declared, "Let's make a hit record right now." Amazingly, the Dwight Twilley Band struck gold with their very first recording. Their debut single, I'm on Fire, released in 1975 with minimal promotion, soared to number 16 on the Billboard Hot 100. It was a strong start for the band, signaling big things to come. The original lineup featured Phil on bass and drums, sharing lead vocals and harmonies with guitarist Dwight Twilley, while Bill Pitcock handled lead guitar. This trio brought their signature blend of power pop, classic pop, and rock influences to their 1976 debut album, Sincerely. Praised for its polished, energetic sound, the album resonated with critics and climbed to number 138 on the Billboard 200, building on the momentum of their breakout single. The Dwight Twilley Band soon set their sights on a second single, choosing Shark, in the Dark. However, Shelter Records pulled the track, fearing it would be seen as a cash-in on the success of movie Jaws, potentially reducing the band to a novelty act. While this decision made sense, it was a major disappointment for the band. But worse news was on the way. At the close of 1976, Shelter Records underwent a distributor change from ABC to Oister, hoping to stabilize the label. However, following a disagreement between owners Leon Russell and Denny Cordell, Russell left Shelter. This created a chaotic situation for the Dwight Twilley Band, leaving them uncertain about their contractual standing. In 1977, the band returned with Twilley Don't Mind, released under Oister. Like their debut, it received critical praise. While it retained the power pop sound, tracks like Rock and Roll 47 introduced a harder R&B edge. This blend of power pop and R&B resonated with fans, and the album reached number 70 on the Billboard 200, signaling growing popularity for the band and a promising future ahead. After touring in support of Twilley Don't Mind through 1977 and 1978, Phil decided to leave the Dwight Twilley Band. At 26, he pursued a solo career, managed by Denny Cordell. With Denny Cordell's support, Phil set out on a solo career. Cordell, a renowned English producer with a history of working with the Moody Blues, Joe Cocker, and Leon Russell, chose not to produce Phil himself. Instead, he recommended Chris Spedding, a talented guitarist, to bring out the best in Phil's sound. Phil made his way back to London, where he worked with Spedding and a group of top session musicians at Olympic Studios. London wasn't exactly a second home for him, but he had grown accustomed to the city, having frequently recorded there with the Dwight Twilley Band. He hoped this time would lead to success, but unfortunately, the tracks recorded during these sessions weren't released until 2016. Afterward, Phil continued his work as a session musician, contributing backing vocals to Darling, a track from Dwight Twilley's debut solo album. He then met Scott Music, a Tulsa musician and member of LA-based band Airtight, which also featured Michael Bean and Dale Ockerman. It seemed like the perfect fit, but Music and Bean eventually formed the band Call, leaving Phil to wonder what might have been. A similar opportunity arose when legendary producer Phil Spector recognized Phil's potential and reached out to Denny Cordell. Though they attempted to strike a deal, they couldn't reach an agreement. Once again, Phil was left to ponder what could have been. In 1980, Phil formed a band with drummer Lee Kicks, bassist Michael Anderson, and guitarist Jeff Rawlings. The group recorded a high-energy, 9-track set in a house on Detroit Street, just off Sunset Strip. As the band prepared to play, they launched into Baby It's You, as someone hit the play button. Later that year, producer Richard Padola and engineer Bill Cooper came across a cassette featuring Phil's music. Within seconds, they recognized his potential. Curious, they asked talent agent Mark Levy, who was with them, if he knew Phil. Although he didn't, he soon would. Padola and Cooper, one of the most successful teams at American Recording Company, had previously worked with bands like Three Dog Night, Iron Butterfly, and Steppenwolf. They decided to see Phil perform live. They attended a show at the Starwood, where Phil opened for 707. After his electrifying performance, he went backstage and met Padola and Cooper, who delivered a simple message: they wanted to record him. Phil didn't take long to agree to work with producer Richard Padola and engineer Bill Cooper, both of whom had an impressive track record. This partnership would prove pivotal as they began working on his long-awaited debut solo album at the American Recording Company. Of the 10 tracks on Phil Seymour, only Precious to Me, Baby It's You, and I Really Love You were written by Phil. The album also featured 3 songs from old friends and former bandmates, including Dwight Twilley's Love You So Much, and Then We Go Up, and Bill Pitcock's Won't Finish Here. These tracks were ones that Phil had performed live for years. Additionally, he included 4 cover songs on his debut album. The album was recorded with a talented group of session musicians, including Bill Pidcock, who added lead and rhythm guitar. Before its official release, Phil Seymour gained positive reviews from critics who were impressed by its slick, polished power pop sound, showcasing Phil's skill as a singer, songwriter, and musician. It was no surprise that when Phil Seymour was released by Neil Bogart's new label, the Boardwalk Entertainment Company, in late 1980, it reached number 64 on the US Billboard 200. By 1980, Phil had mastered the art of crafting melodic songs with catchy hooks, blending slick production with his trademark harmonies. Songs like It's You, Precious to Me, I Really Love You, Then We Go Up, Don't Blow Your Life Away, and Love You So Much all stood out as high-quality, memorable tracks with a radio-friendly sound, playing a key role in the success of the album. The chosen single, Precious to Me, was released later in 1980 and became a hit, reaching number 22 on the US charts and number 6 in Australia, where it was certified gold. The B-side, Susie Glider, a melodic ballad, added an extra layer to the single, making Precious to Me the perfect finishing touch to an already exceptional album. Despite his success, Phil, known as the Prince of Power Pop, continued to work as a session musician and backing vocalist. By this time, he had built a strong network within the LA music scene and was a well-known and popular figure in the city's top clubs. It wasn't long before he began working on his second album, Phil Seymour 2. For this album, Phil wrote only Better to Me Than You, and co-wrote Suffering with Jimmy Podlaw. As with his debut, Phil Seymour 2 featured a Dwight Twilley composition, Looking for the Magic. These tracks, along with the other 8, were recorded by a talented band at recording company, produced by Richard Padola and engineered by Bill Cooper. Critics were impressed with Phil Seymour 2, noting that it was as polished, slick, and full of power pop energy as his first album. However, behind the scenes, Phil appeared to be struggling with the pressures of his growing fame. He occasionally missed shows and seemed disoriented when performing, leading some industry insiders to worry about his ability to handle the spotlight. Released in 1982, Phil Seymour 2 failed to make a significant impact on the charts. The Boardwalk Entertainment Company, which was facing financial struggles, failed to properly promote the album, and many listeners were unaware it was even released. Despite the quality of tracks like Dancing a Dream and Better to Me Than You, the album didn't chart, and this marked a huge disappointment given Seymour's previous success. Unfortunately, Phil Seymour 2 would be the last album the 30-year-old artist would release. After the commercial disappointment of Phil Seymour 2, Phil found himself at a crossroads. The death of Neil Bogart marked the end of the Boardwalk Entertainment Company, leaving Phil without a recording contract. Despite this setback, he continued to showcase his considerable talents, recording tracks like Now and Teaching Me, which highlighted his abilities. However, no recording contract materialized, and he continued his work as a session musician. In 1984, Phil joined Carla Olson's band, the Textones, as their drummer. The band, well known on the LA live scene, underwent a transformation thanks to Phil's contribution. He also played on their debut album Midnight Mission. Carla Olson, recognizing Phil's immense talent, was determined to help him secure a new solo recording contract. Although the Textones were booked for tours in the US, UK, and Europe, and Phil played an integral role in their sound, his solo deal never materialized. He continued to work with the Textones, contributing to their albums Through the Canyon and Back in Time. 3 songs featuring Phil also appeared in the 1985 film Sylvester. In 1985, during a tour, Phil discovered a lump on the back of his neck, which was later diagnosed as lymphoma. He left the Textones to return to Tulsa for chemotherapy, realizing that his health now took precedence over his music. In 1986, just a year later, Phil returned to the studio to record a cover of Michael Anderson's Maybe It Was Memphis. Unfortunately, it remained unreleased until 2011, when it was finally made available alongside Teaching Me. Tragically, on August 17, 1993, 41-year-old Phil Seymour passed away after an 8-year battle with lymphoma. The loss deeply affected his wife Jacqueline, family, friends and fans, who mourned the passing of this immensely young and talented artist. He was laid to rest at Mount Olivet Cemetery, Pauls Valley, Garvin County, Oklahoma. And there you have it. Though Phil is no longer with us, his songs and spirit live on, forever etched in the hearts of those who loved his sound. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos just like this. Take care and bye for now.